Okay, so we are on to Standard 9, Operations and Management, and we have four parts to the standard. How does an effective leader strategically manage staff, resources, assigning and scheduling teachers and staff to roles and responsibilities that optimize the professional capacity to address each student's learning needs? So we have our school calendar in the top left-hand corner, which from the master schedule, in talking to you, Mr. Burton, and talking to Coach Rob and several other people, that really is a major foundational part to the success of a school. Not making sure that you don't say uh, you know conflict with semester exams and too many celebrations and too many out of guarding instructional time. All of these things are big deals. And then yesterday I asked you, and you helped me out with the uh, master teaching schedule. You want to put people in the right spot. You want them to be happy, but also you want to make sure that they are, meeting the needs of the children. Which brings us to our next item in the bottom left-hand corner, which is teacher recommendations. You want to make sure that students are set up for success and that the teachers aren't getting a class full of kids that maybe aren't ready for an AP class or are going to be struggling, and that really is not a great way to start the year. And then we have department heads. I could have included other areas as well, but we have grade level leaders, which really help with dealing with some of the smaller distractions that we can have in the classroom, trying to keep them from turning into big distractions in the classroom or around the school. And then our course catalog, making sure that students and family and community members are well versed in what they're getting into. They're not just making, AP biology sounds cool. Let's take that. But there's that's not an easy class, so you want to know what's involved. Now we have guided question number 2. How does an effective leader seek, acquire, and manage physical, and other resources to support curriculum, instruction, and assessment, student learning community, professional capacity, and community and family and community engagement? First of all, this guided question was very hard for me to unpack, so I did my best, and I think I have a lot of good pieces of evidence here. Um, where it says facility management for module 34, that is basically talking about how the school meets the needs of the community. So, for example, we have our concerts set up in the gym at, twice a year, which kind of creates a bottleneck with sports and other things. We have our NPR room that is very needed and shared and other items. Uh, we have parent groups coming through here quite often. We now have our creativity hub. So we are really trying to make sure that we have various ways to engage the community and make sure that the students have opportunities to use their creativity in other ways. Best practices, module 34, we were talking about testing, something that you and I have spent a lot of time talking about with the formatives and summatives and how you best formulate learning in the classroom. Um, and we shared in our group, we created groups in our cohort, and we shared um, how we do that, and what works best for each individual school. And then testing environment was something that we spent a lot of time looking at in our cohort, which was how do we create a sound environment, a safe environment for AP and IB testing, which is super important and can sometimes uh, maybe a little bit get overlooked, but you can really set yourself up for a lot of hassle if you have test irregularities or a perceived environment that is not secure to the community. Parents could definitely make things very difficult for us. Testing practices, school comparative. We got into groups and we looked at 3 different schools and how they set up their testing environment, and that was really interesting to see. We're in the middle of map testing now. What is our environment like? How do we make sure that the teachers are ready for a successful adventure? How do we support teachers when we have issues with internet issues or device issues or software issues? And then, some of the items that we do for our community, I'm a big book person, so I had to put in there, reading is my superpower. We have book fairs and we have reading competitions and other things, and I really think that that is really important part. I put the department head in again because I really think that when you talk about the conversations you and I have had, when we talk about instruction and assessment, that is something that I feel, my personal feelings here, that department heads can really be even more influential than they are right now. Really engaging in that coaching, mentoring, making sure that your little area of the building is sound and safe and secure in the way that you're teaching, you're assessing, and you're checking for learning in other areas. And then how does an effective leader employ technology to improve the quality and efficiency of operations and management? So we do have our device renewal cycle, which I think is a pretty common practice. Um, I did a kind of a thumbnail one day where I just kind of said, okay, if I went online and I bought a laptop, how much would a laptop cost? And then I deducted like 10% basically because we are a school, we're going to get some sort of a discount. And then I extrapolated that around the school. That is a giant chunk of money that goes into personal devices for our teachers. And that's not even including Chromebooks and iPads and monitors and other things. So that is a big part of what we do. Monitoring appropriate use of technology. We've gone over that before, but I wanted to include that again. It's hard to be efficient if you are using technology inappropriately. Um, we were asked in our program to create a technology plan, which was rather challenging, but very informative. And then, as you can see, the last item there was the technology inventory, which is kind of what I was referring to. But that was hard for me. I wasn't able to get hard numbers, but I really did my best to kind of look at my third floor and then expand that into the rest of the school and what did I come up with. But obviously a large investment. And then last but not least, how does an effective leader plan and manage school's budget to ensure optimum and equitable use of financial resources? And there's a lot of evidence here, and a lot of it really was a very steep learning curve. Module 35 for me was a major challenge because I really had never ventured into the area of budgeting and resource allocation. But I will tell you, I don't want to use the word enjoy. I didn't enjoy it, but I really embraced it, and I knew that it was important, and I learned so much. We had a professor who we just called Dr. Kevin, and I thought that he was just a wonderful professor, and I really enjoyed his teaching. But we looked at allocating resources, not only what we're talking about with like, um, you know, instructional uh, funds and how we get our department orders, but allocating resources could be something like, you know, do we need to actually hire people to do these jobs? Do we have enough EAL people? Do we have enough support staff? Do we have enough tech people? Um, it could be allocating resources like what we talked about with making sure that each classroom has, the fundamental technology to be successful. Um, it could also be allocating resources like, classrooms, um, shareable space. You know, hopefully we will see heating and air conditioning in our old gym in the sometime in near future. That is, I'm sure, a major expenditure in and of itself. Accountability for spending. Um, that was a challenge for me, which is, kind of how do we know what we're spending and how are we making sure that we are spending on what we not only what we need but are we spending it wisely and not, as the saying goes, cutting off our nose to spite our face? And that was a challenge for me. Um, Goal setting and prioritizing the school budget. One of the things that I looked at, and I talked to Duke a little bit about it, and he was able, the head of our tech department, was the expansion of bandwidth and why that was needed. The moving of the server room, that was not a priority going into last year, but suddenly when the room was flooded, it very much became a priority, and that was very educational for me to talk to Dr. Swan about that and other people, including yourself. And then human resources allocation plan. You're in the middle of that right now. How many students are we going to have next year? Do we need to add, one science position? Are we going to add a part-time social studies position? Do we need more EAL support staff? Um, those are all issues that we have to deal with. And then last but not least, we were asked to create a budget timeline, which I was able to kind of walk through a little bit on how we gauge our orders, and um, when do we start thinking about what we're going to purchase, and when do we actually draw the line and say, after this point we are no longer going to take any orders. I just said a lot. Do you have any comments on that? I'm sorry if I just avalanched you with everything.
I would say finance is always the most difficult for administrators. Um, some parts of it are not in your control.
Mm,
Um, and so you get told what your allocations are in terms of faculty, and then you figure out how to best use your
mm,
faculty. So that's based off of numbers, but you don't get to control that. They basically tell you these are how many teachers you have. You have your program, and then you figure out how to make that happen. Um, the most important thing is you need a good lead secretary. Anybody will tell you that. You need a
yes,
good lead secretary
yes.
who understands the finance, because principals do not understand finance as well as they should. It's not taught. You have one course that
There it
might,
is. Yep.
and that's it,
Mm,
right? And yet you can make a lot of mistakes.
mm,
Um, Thankfully, we have enough systems in place where, teachers want to order something, you go through the head of department first. So is it even aligned to the standards? Is
mm,
it so at least you have some checks and balances. We have an automated system that a purchase above a certain amount, the principal can approve it. So a certain amount greater than that, the head of school also has to approve it. So depending on the amount, there's also
mm,
some checks and balances in the system that keep you from just making a huge purchase that
mm,
then you might regret, because there's some people that are going to go, are we sure we're spending this amount of money
mm,
on this item?
mm.
What's your rationale?
Right.
There's some discussions along the way. So that helps. But finance is a tricky one.
Mm,
And then if you have a good finance department, they always have a rainy day fund, so that they've always tucked some money away just in case some things like a server room needs to be
right, right.
added, or the government says you got to have these particular books, and you didn't plan for that in your
Mm,
resources, but now you can afford to do that and still not have to pull from the other budgets. So it can be tricky at times. But it's actually the part that you have the least amount, and the reason why it's tricky is you have the least amount of control over it, in terms of you don't get to determine what your budget is.
mm,
You don't determine your human resources. You are just managing those things. So, and sometimes they're not adequate.
mm,
Other times you're blessed and you have more than you need.
mm,
But in most cases, you're probably going, I need more in this area. I don't need money there. Can I pull money from there? No, it's allocated for that
mm,
specific thing. Or how do I go about
mm,
moving money because I'm spending too much money on something that I don't need a food budget, right? So how can I take that money and put it into textbooks,
mm,
right? So just learning those pieces, and it just helps to have really good people in the finance department, a good lead secretary, because a lot of times you're not in control. You're just pushing the button saying yes or no,
Right.
and now we can't make that choice because I got to save this money for something that may come up later. So it can be a difficult one for sure.
Would you rather be in the situation you are now where you don't have a lot of control over facilities, or would you rather be in a situation where you do have control over facilities?
Um, no, because that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I give feedback. Um, Obviously, if things aren't working,
Hmm.
if aesthetically things are not okay and it makes the school look trashy or bad or
Hmm.
that kind of, that feedback is
Hmm.
important. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't even control that purse string. So regardless of what my opinion is,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I was thinking about the my previous school in Tunisia, which is, just kind of this one school. It's a cooperative school, it's a nonprofit school, so the head of school and the principals and the board really have a lot of control over the facilities. And I was just wondering, would it be better to add that to your plate, or just kind of have where you have it now, where there is an entity out there that takes care of it. You might be able to have suggestions and have, you know, some input, but it sounds like mostly what you get is you get an email that basically says we're gonna be refurbishing this area on this date. Let your staff know.
A lot of that happens
Yeah.
too. Um, but it's not just I'm getting an email. So this is the thing. When when you're looking at the whole scheme of things, you're looking at you have curriculum, you have your people,
Hmm.
and then you have your facilities.
Hmm.
But ultimately, you have to focus on, okay, can I deliver the curriculum,
Hmm.
the program that we say we are communicating to the public?
Hmm.
What the parents and the kids expect, are we able to deliver? These other things are important. You need finances to make those things happen. You need facilities to make those things happen.
Hmm.
All of, all of those things that we've talked about today, all of those things are important to make it happen. But that's what it's about. And so then you have to go, what tough decisions do I need to make?
Hmm.
You know, when it comes to the schedule, what courses are being cut? Um, that's going to have the least impact on offering the quality of program that we, in our mission and vision, say we're going to deliver.
Hmm.
What things can hold off in facilities and what things will actually impact the quality of teaching
Yeah.
and learning.
Yeah.
And so, would we all like brand new bathrooms and, you know, heating in the gym and all those kinds of things? Yes. Which one of those impacts instruction the most? There's a period of time where there's very little instruction that can happen in the gym because of temperatures. So to me, that's a priority,
Yeah, we're
right?
not using that space
Right.
effectively.
Whether the hallways are painted and are
Hmm.
aesthetically as pleasing as we would like when we do tours and that kind of stuff, maybe, you
Hmm.
know. But to me, making sure that we can deliver the program that the students that are here
Hmm.
are having a good experience, and the teachers and staff can do what they do their job, and they feel comfortable. That's more important. And so
Yep.
that's kind of how you have to make your decisions. What's going to have the greatest impact on the program,
Hmm.
um, and everything is important. There's nothing that's not important, but some things are essential, and
Wants
it's
and needs.
and so you just have to go. What's going to make sure that the
Hmm.
program works the way it's supposed to work? And so it's when I do it that way, it's easier because then people and if you're transparent, people understand.
Hmm.
These are the things I had to look at.
Hmm.
This is the decision I had to make. So it's not saying that yours is not important. It is not the most important. So
Hmm.
yours is going to have your answer is not a no. It's yes later.
Hmm.
It's on the priority list. We're going to get to it, We just may not get to it as early as you would like for us to
Right.
get to it.
Right.
And those are tough decisions that certainly have to happen, even with scheduling. Um, Sometimes it works out. We have 100 kids that want over 100 kids signed up for the yearbook. Well, only 30 go get it,
Uh-huh. Right.
right? And so do I go, no, I need to do more sections of yearbook? Or do I need to go, no, I need to utilize people in a better way?
Mhm.
And so, those are the tough decisions you have to make.
Well, thank you for your time. So much to think about.